We all remember this. She got on that plane, and he walked into the night with a French inspector. We all remember his last line, too. Louis, he said, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. If I can think of one word that sums up working at Warner Brothers, it's probably friendship. If you use the word, it's broad a sense. After all, no one fights better than best friends. It was Bogart who said after he left the studio that the thing he missed most were the fights. And there were some great fights. Bogart with Jack Warner, Betty Davis with Jack Warner, Darryl Zanuck with Jack Warner, Earl Flynn, James Cagney, Olivia de Havilland, Hal Wallace, all with Jack Warner. Even Harry Warner fought with Jack Warner. Harry was 11 years older than his kid brother, and he thought Jack had gone to Hollywood on him. Jack was the youngest of the four brothers who started the studio, and the only one born in North America. JL, as he was called, made the movies, and Harry ran the business. Together they built one of Hollywood and America's greatest dream machines. Jack Warner was the head of the studio longer than any other studio chief in history. 5 years in all. Harry quarterbacked the family team for most of that time, successfully guiding the studio through the Depression, World War II, and the coming of television. The day was still making movies on the studio lot that Jack and his brothers built. Jack's shoes are now being filled by makers like Bob Daly and Terry Summer.
Hi there, how are you? Good.
They run a studio in California. In New York, Steve Ross, who purchased Warner Brothers in 1969, provides an enlightened leadership, especially in the selection of motion picture properties.
Traumatic experience. Send me a copy. And if I like it, they don't make it. If I don't like it, they make it.
As it was in Jack Warner's time, the studio was run from the West Coast. The tradition is the same, but the style is different. JL was most known for his frugality.
You've got to consider where he came from and his brothers. They came from a very, very poor family. His father was an itinerant trader up and down the East Coast. And he had a big family, so every penny had to count.
Jack's parents had fled Poland and come to America at the turn of the century, looking for freedom and the good life. Jack was born in Canada, where his father was selling pots and pans, but he would grow up in Youngstown, Ohio. He was a rebellious kid, an exhibitionist, and he and his brothers all quit school early on. Harry had his own cobbler shop at the age of 14, and Sam started as a carnival barker and a projectionist at a local amusement park. It was 1904 when Harry and Sam both decided that moving pictures was the way to go. Harry had seen the crowds line up to buy tickets on one of his trips to Pittsburgh, and Sam saw the power the screen had on the audiences every working day. The brothers convinced their father to pawn a gold watch and the family horse to raise money. They bought their own projector and a print of the Great Train Robbery. They took the show on the road, and by the end of the year, they were able to reclaim the horse and return it to their father as a Hanukkah present. A year later, they bought their first movie theater, settling down in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. The Cascade Nickelodeon had no chairs, however, and they had to borrow them from a local funeral parlor. Harry booked the films, Abe managed the theaters, and Sam was the projectionist. And Jack, at the age of 14, was the chaser.
This gentleman introduced me as a former singer, and I must admit I did sing once, and I was used as a chaser in the early days of the motion picture movies. Audience, why, they want to get rid of an audience, they have someone like me come out and sing. And of course I sang very badly, which I sing worse tonight. Are you ready?
Yes.
Well, you're more than I am.
Satisfied exhibiting other people's moving pictures, the brothers decided quickly to make their own. By 1912, Jack and Sam had begun to direct films on the West Coast. Back east, Harry and Abe tried to figure out how to distribute them. Then in 1917, on a farm in New Jersey, they made the right film at the right time. They brought the bestseller My 4 Years in Germany to the screen just before the war in Europe ended. It was the Warner Brothers' first big hit. The young movie makers were bullish with success. With a little help from a friendly banker, they opened their first studio on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. They were ready to take on Paramount and MGM. They were still outsiders, but they were kicking at the door. They knew in order to compete, they needed major stars. So in 1922, they signed John Barrymore, Broadway's top Shakespearean actor, and cast him in Beau Brummel. They brought him back quickly in The Sea Beast, an adaptation of Melville's classic Moby Dick. They had already filmed St. Clair Lewis's Main Street and other major novels in an attempt to become a mainstream player in Hollywood. Later, Barrymore would star in the historic Don Juan. Barrymore proved a big asset, but more important to the brothers' success was the signing of another star. His name was Rin Tin Tin, and his cameraman said he was one of the most disagreeable dogs that ever lived. But he was a World War I legend, and his trainer, Lee Duncan, got JL to give the dog a 3-year contract. Rinty, as his colleagues at the studio called him, made 19 movies for Warner's. Eventually, he earned more money than even Barrymore. He got 12,000 fan letters in a week. And he was in demand all across America, even appearing live on stage as a special artist at New York's Palace Theater. Sam and Jack knew they had a big new star on their roster. To support that star, they hired a hot young writer, 22-year-old Darrell Francis Zanuck. Or as Jack Warner called him, 3 charming gentlemen. Zanuck, working under different names, wrote half of Warner Brothers movies in a single year. In 1925, The Limited Mail was one of the big successes of the silent era, and Zanuck became the heir apparent to JL's throne. The Napoleonic Zanuck clashed with the Warner Brothers, but still became head of production. He described his stay at the studio as the best and the worst of times.
They were great friends. It was a kind of friendship where they were very competitive. They're competitive in the picture business. They were competitive at the chemin de fer tables in the south of France. But they were friends. Totally different types of people. But they were close friends, as were most of the studio heads and chieftains. The studio executives in my father's time, particularly my father, were really picture makers. They were showmen, and they knew the mechanics of making pictures.
Richard Zanuck also knows the mechanics of making motion pictures. He and his wife Lily produced Driving Miss Daisy for Warner's in 1989. The spring night the following year, 2 Warner Brothers stars had the privilege of bestowing the ultimate honor on that picture.
And the Oscar goes to...
Driving Miss Daisy, Richard D. Zanuck, Lily Cindy Zanuck.
I told you to wait.
Yeah, I heard what you said. Now, how you think I feel having to sit up here and ask you, can I go make water, like I'm some child?
Oh, God, be ashamed.
Well, I ain't no child, Miss Daisy. And I ain't just some back of the neck you look at while you going wherever you got to go. I'm a man. I'm here about 70 years old, and I know when my bladder's full. Now, I might get out this car and go on off back over yonder somewhere and do what I got to do. I might take the key with me, too. Now, that's all there is to it now.
Driving Miss Daisy's Best Picture Oscar was the 5th such Oscar for the studio. They won for the first time in 1937, The Life of Émile Zola, with Paul Muni playing the French hero.
Save the army, convict Zola, and save France. I say to you, pick up that challenge. Save the army and save France. But do it by letting truth
conquer.
In 1942, they won again with Casablanca.
Play Marseillaise. Play it.
Four Warner Brothers Best Picture Oscars were for films that dealt with intolerance and injustice. So it was with Chariots of Fire in 1981.
Who's Abraham? What do you know about him?
Repton chap. Jewish.
Do they say he can run?
Like the wind.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
The studio's most honored Academy Award film was My Fair Lady.
Again.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
I think she's got it. I think she's got it.
Bravo! The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
In 1964, My Fair Lady won 12 nominations and 8 Oscars, including Best Picture.
On the plain. And where's that blasted plane? In Spain, in Spain. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
Warner Brothers' first Oscar came in 1929 for their early work with sound. It was Sam Warner who got his brothers interested in Bell Lab's new sound system, which synchronized the projector with a record player. Harry resisted, but Sam tricked him into looking at a test film.
How's that? Can you feel the air? I'd like to know whether you can feel the air coming to you. You people that are sitting there and watching this picture.
Harry, who said no one wanted to hear actors talk, liked what he saw and heard. He agreed to let Sam produce a series of short films with sound as appetizers to silent features. For the next 2 years, Sam produced at least 2 sound shorts a week. He also took time out to get married and put more time into trying to convince his brother to sign Al Jolson to do a feature movie with music. Jolson, billed as the greatest entertainer of his time, agreed. But he not only sang, he ad-libbed, and he talked, and he made history.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you. You ain't heard nothing. You want to hear Toot Toot Tootsie? All right, hold on. Toot Toot Tootsie, goodbye. Toot Toot Tootsie, don't cry.
October 6, 1927, the jazz singer opened at Warner's Theater in New York City. No one who was there that night will ever forget it. Suddenly, with Jolson, talkies took on a new dimension. But the Warner Bros. Didn't share the joy of that opening night. The day before, on the eve of his greatest triumph, Sam Warner died suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage. He was only 39. The success of The Jazz Singer and The Lights of New York, which quickly followed it, the studio announced it was committed to doing only all-music, all-talk movies, which meant actors had to speak into microphones, sometimes concealed in a telephone.
What you mean, take him for a ride. Oh.
Spend the money, come on, my honey. Let's land it, spend it, send it, rolling around.
The sound of music became the sound of money for the Warner Brothers. The outsiders in Hollywood now became the insiders.
We're in the money, look up, the skies are sunny. All that direction you want through, you've done us wrong.
The brothers led the way as movies converted to sound. By 1930, they owned 25% of the theaters in America. And after threatening to buy MGM, Fox, and UA, they bought First National, taking over their studio in Burbank. They were, as Al Jolson sang in his next movie, sitting on top of the world.
And they were sitting on top of the world, the Warner Brothers. Immigrant kids giving it their all. What I like best is on their way up, they made sure that with their first monies earned, they bought their father's horseback and gave it to him for Hanukkah. Good kids. Tough businessmen. They carved out a niche for themselves in music right at the beginning, and they held on to it with the help of Ruby Keeler. Ruby sang and tap danced her way to stardom, coming out of a Ziegfeld show on Broadway into a Warner Brothers movie that seemed to be the story of her life. Ruby Keeler broke into show business as a hoofer for George M. Cohan before she was 16. She made 9 movies for Warner Brothers, starting in 1933 with 42nd Street. It was in this movie that she was inspired by Warner Baxter's famous line.
You're going out a youngster, but you've got to come back a star.
Come and meet those dancing feet. On the avenue, I'm taking you to 42nd Street.
She danced with James Cagney in Footlight Parade and sang with Dick Powell in 6 movies.
Petting in the park,
Bad boy.
petting in the dark, bad girl. What you doing, honey?
Oh, I feel so funny.
Petting in the park with you.
But her real co-star at Warner's was a Broadway choreographer named Busby Berkeley. Berkeley came to Warner's to do 42nd Street and stayed for 7 years, choosing girls for his chorus lines not only because they could dance, but because they were beautiful.
Doesn't matter. See, there are beautiful girls everywhere.
Berkeley was more than just a choreographer. He was a designer. Out of his sets, his camera angles, and his dancers, he created a dazzling array of living geometric patterns.
Because I could walk on the set and I didn't know if I was going to come out of the floor or out of a fireplace. I didn't know where I was going to be. And I saw this huge pool on the set, and all the gals were in there. And I said, okay, Buzz, what am I going to do? He said, well, you're just going to get in that water and you're going to swim. And I said, but I don't swim very well and I don't dive. He said, oh, you can do that. He said, get in there and fool around with the girls. Of course, Buzz wouldn't take no for an answer.
Berkeley blew away the proscenium and altered our perceptions. We saw the world of Busby Berkeley from every conceivable angle.
The set was black, with one huge window in the background. I can just see it right now. And we had about, around 60 pianos, white. And they wonder how we move the pianos, but very simple. We had a man underneath each piano, dressed in black. The floor was black. And we could see the movement of the men, it would blend into the background.
Berkeley was supported by the music and lyrics of Harry Warren and Al Dubin. Warren won 3 Oscars, but Berkeley never won one. But that didn't dampen Buzz's enthusiasm to create. The man who created a revolution of the eye came to a tragic and sad end because of personal crises, but not before he gave us some of the golden age's most golden moments. At that time, Warner's was the only studio without a newsreel. But still their feature films seemed to capture the events of the day. In the early 30s, they owned the gangster movie.
Now, this is Rico speaking. Rico! R-I-C-O, Rico. Little Caesar, that's who.
His real name was Emanuel Goldenberg. For 17 years, he was a Broadway star. He hated gunfire and squinted whenever he pulled a trigger. Still, Edward G. Robinson became one of the screen's first and toughest tough guys.
Rico, are you coming out or do you want to be carried out?
In the 1930 film directed by Mervyn LeRoy, written by Francis Farrago and Robert E. Lee, Robinson delivered one of the most famous last lines in movie history.
Mother of mercy. Is this the end of Rico?
He was only 5'5", Edward G. Robinson, and not your conventional leading man. He was already 37 years old when he came out to Hollywood from Broadway to become the first star in Warner Brothers' Rogues Gallery, a kind of murderer's row of the silver screen. He'd be followed by Cagney and Raft and Bogart, while none of them had the looks either that could have landed them a contract, say, at MGM. But they could join Robinson here at the Warner Brothers studio in a series of movies that celebrated not just their toughness, but their spirit. For it was the Depression, and they were the little guys, and all they wanted was to be somebody.
In I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, Paul Muni struggled more than most to be somebody. Called one of the best movies made in this country, Fugitive had a profound effect on the penal system reforms in the South.
That'll learn you to sit up and hold on to this.
Its ending is as chilling today as it was then.
Jim. Oh, Jim. It was all going to be so different.
It is different. They've made it different.
I can't let you go like this. Can't you tell me where you're going? Will you ride? Did you need any money? But you must, Jim. How do you live?
I steal.
Like Paul Muni, James Cagney came from Broadway. He made the first of his 44 movies for Warner Brothers in 1930. In 1931, he was promoted from a second lead to the star in director William Wellman's Public Enemy. He brought to the role what he called an unmistakable touch of the gutter, and he vaulted to stardom.
I wish you was the wishing well, so that I could tie a bucket to you and sink you.
Maybe you found someone you like better. Oh, you hurt me.
That's love.
Ow!
That's love.
They say that's the way Eskimos kiss.
Why, you...
2 for 1.
Jack Warner called Cagney a professional againster. Cagney led the way for actors to break free of the studio control, and he did so while giving shape to an on-screen character that would endure the test of time.
That hitching of the trousers, I got that from a fellow who hung out on the corner of 78th Street and First Avenue. I was about 12 years old, and he was most interesting to me, because that's all he did all day. And when somebody would greet him, he didn't deign to say hello. He just stood back and did this.
As an actor who could dance only a little, Cagney won an Oscar for his performance as George M. Cohan in Yankee Doodle Dandy, a film produced by Hawn. The Warner Brothers turned to Hal Wallis to head up production when Zanuck left the studio in 1933. Wallis oversaw as many as 65 pictures in a single year. Mervyn LeRoy, Harry's son-in-law, was one of Wallace's leading directors in the 30s. He did 23 pictures in a 3-year period, including I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. He and Wallace often tried to get Jack Warner to sign new talent. But as in this instance, Jack Warner refused, saying the actor's ears were too big.
Get busy.
I tell you, I can't without the proper authority.
I give you the authority.
Who are you?
I'm Nick, the chauffeur.
Not only did Jack Warner let Gable get away, he also refused to sign Lana Turner after this screen test.
David, how could you?
You picked a studio with a big skylight window, didn't you?
Well, what has that got to do with it?
Does one have to have an ugly setting just because one is doing
An
it?
ugly thing?
Yes, a hideous thing. Didn't you think it was hideous?
Please, David.
After doing one film with her at Warner's, Mervyn LeRoy put Lana Turner under personal contract, and they both went to MGM.
Another youngster who got away from Jack Warner was Orson Welles. This screen test was made before the young actor's War of the Worlds radio broadcast.
I don't like a pair of eyes. Staring at me. With no look in them.
Hal Wallis was successful, however, in getting Jack Warner to sign a 19-year-old girl that he saw in Max Reinhardt's production of A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Hollywood Bowl. When the studio commissioned Reinhardt to make a movie of the Shakespearean classic, Warner signed the young girl to a fateful 7-year contract.
You canker blossom. You thief of love. What, have you come by night and stolen my love's heart from him?
He signed her even though he said she'd only be remembered for her last name, which he said no one would ever be able to spell.
Puppet. So, that way goes the game.
No one would ever be able to spell it, but the name Olivia de Havilland would take its place on the nation's marquees and stay there for 3 decades. She became a star in the very next picture when she was paired opposite a young Australian actor who was rushed into the title role of Captain Blood.
All right, my hearties, follow me!
Earl Flynn became the studio's first matinee idol. The screen chemistry between Olivia de Havilland and Earl Flynn was undisputable.
That's an insulting sum to offer. Well, does anyone offer more?
£10.
Sold to Miss Arabella Bishop for £10.
Sold to Miss Arabella Bishop for £10.
Their screen partnership, which would extend to 8 movies, was possible only because British star Robert Donat disappointed producer Hal Wallis.
We had built this huge set on our stage, had costumes, had cast other people in the picture, and were considered for a considerable sum. At the last minute, Donat reneged on the contract, and we were stuck without a man. At that point, we decided to test Flynn and put him in the costume, put a sword in his hand, and he literally jumped off the screen.
Welcome to Sherwood, my lady.
Flynn's most famous role and his best picture with de Havilland was The Adventures of Robin Hood.
Get ready.
The picture was originally cast with James Cagney as Robin, but when Cagney walked off the lot, Flynn was in. One of the first pictures shot in Technicolor, Robin Hood, had an extraordinary score by Eric Korngold.
I'm only just beginning. From this night on, I use every means in my power to fight you.
He became the man that most women wanted to make love with, and most men wanted to fight. In Gentleman Jim, he played the gentleman heavyweight champion, Jim Corbett. The lady was played by Alexis Smith.
When we did the picture Gentleman Jim, he had a mild heart attack, which no one knew at the time. The publicity department kept it very quiet. And I remember saying to him, you know, I said, why are you doing this to yourself? Don't you want to live to a ripe old age? He said, no. He said, I'm only interested in this half, and I want to live it my way. I'm not interested in the other half at all.
I was never much of a man for tomorrows. I can already feel the courage oozing out of me.
Flynn would make 40 films for Warner Brothers, surviving a sensational statutory rape scandal in 1942. He left the lot 10 years later. In 1958, Jack Warner brought the agent broken down Flynn back to play the part of John Barrymore in Too Much, Too Soon. The lives of these two screen lovers tragically paralleled each other. Flynn died 1 year later at the age of 50. On screen, however, he remains one of the most indestructible of the Warner Brothers stars.
If Errol Flynn was so indestructible, so is Bette Davis. That 5'2" volcano who's been called the fifth Warner brother. What actress hasn't admired her? And who in show business doesn't recall that needlepoint pillow which proclaimed her credo, no guts, no glory? One critic wrote that if she'd have lived 200 years before, she would have been burnt at the stake as a witch. She's been called every bad name in the English language, and Jack L. Warner called her even worse names in other languages. But for 18 years, she was one of the glorious events at this studio. At first as a female Jimmy Cagney, and then as Bette Davis, actress and star. She made 54 films for Warner Brothers, classics like Dark Victory, Jezebel, and now Voyager. She came to Hollywood with her mother and her pet terrier in 1930. She was signed by Universal, but the studio dropped her contract. No man, they said, would ever want her at the end of a movie. She was ready to leave Hollywood when she got a very important phone call.
Very elegant English voice said, "Is this Miss Davis? This is Mr. George Arliss." Well, I said, "Oh, my dear." I thought it was some friend ribbing me. And this went on for about 10 minutes. He was very patient. He said, "No, my dear, this is George Arliss. And could you come out to Warner Brothers immediately for an interview?"
She interviewed, and she got the part opposite George Arliss in The Man Who Played God.
You don't think I've been deceiving you, do you?
No, dear. You've just been deceiving yourself.
Arliss had earlier won an Academy Award for his performance in Warner Brothers' Disraeli.
You'll always be my idol.
I shall always be your friend. Goodbye.
I'll be seeing you.
Davis was signed to a 7-year contract in 1931, and she did 9 pictures in the next year.
I'd like to kiss you, but I just washed my hair. Bye.
One of her early directors called her a lousy actress, but it wasn't long before Warner Brothers discovered the explosive little broad was box office.
Oh, I should laugh at you, should I? But I can't help it. You were so awkward that I almost laughed in your face at first, and then it made me quite sick to think that anyone could be stupid enough to be taken in by a lot of old tricks. I thought you might at least be amusing, but you turned out to be dull and stupid and so afraid. Get out of here before you give me hysterics! Your wife. I've never been a wife to you, you poor simpering fool. If you had any pride, if you were a man instead of a drooling milksop, you'd throw me out and be ashamed to admit that you'd ever married me.
She won an Oscar in 1936 for Dangerous. It only served to whet her appetite for better scripts like The Letter. She had turned out her share of potboilers, she said, and now she wanted quality. To get it, she broke her contract and quit the studio. She wasn't the only studio player to feel that way.
You're killing me! I'm being murdered! I can't stand this torture anymore! I'm dying! You're killing me!
I'm telling you, J.L., you're typecasting me to death. Comedy. All this comedy. Ha ha. Yak yak. Honest, J.L., you just gotta give me a dramatic part.
Hello, Mr. Lesson. Hello, Leon.
Rocky, what's on your mind? What can I do for you?
You see, I've been in cartoons a long time, and I was thinking that I thought if I had a chance to act in the features, what's Errol Flynn got that I haven't?
You mean to say you want to get out of your cartoon contract?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Plucky. Don't forget me when you're a star. He'll be back.
Leon Schlesinger's cool helped him establish Warner Brothers' Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies as both commercial and creative successes. Since 1930, the studio's animation department has turned out the kind of work that gets special showings at places like New York's Museum of Modern Art. Artists like Friz Freleng and Chuck Jones, or Mutt and Jeff, as J.R. Warner called them, are part of a team that won 6 Oscars and 27 nominations.
Hello!
Tex Avery, who was present at the creation, said there was only one kind of Warner Brothers cartoon, funny ones.
Hello!
Porky Pig, created by Friz Freleng in 1935, set the standards for the 6-minute cartoons that became part of America's movie-going experience.
Paul, right there. Don't let it worry you, Skipper. I'm just a crazy darn fool duck.
Porky Pig's cartoons became birthplaces and proving grounds for future stars like Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny.
Got a hunting license? But I haven't got one now.
The first Bugs Bunny cartoon came along as just a Daffy Duck in a rabbit suit, really.
Bugs Bunny evolved into one of the studio's greatest megastars. He did it so quickly and explosively.
You win, Doc. I have not even begun to fight.
The reason I picked that voice was I had to have a tough voice, either Brooklyn or the Bronx. So I thought, why don't I put the two of them together, Doc? So that's how I got the voice of Bugs Bunny.
Bugs hit the ground running, and he's been outwitting all kinds of varmints for over 50 years. The Warner Brothers animators often spoofed live-action stars like Bette Davis.
You think I'm cruel, mad, selfish, domineering. Good morning. Well, you're right. I'm all this. And heaven, too.
Davis's flight from the studio ended in a London court. Jack Warner sued her and got her back to work in pictures like Jezebel, directed by William Wyler and co-starring Henry Fonda.
Isn't it lovely?
Julie, it's red.
It's gorgeously red.
You can't wear red to the Olympus ball.
Why not?
You never saw an unmarried girl in anything but white.
Well, you're going to see one tomorrow night.
The actress who once advised, "Pray to God and read the lines," won her second Oscar for Jezebel. Jack Warner was getting her better scripts. Years later, she recalled J.L., her longtime adversary.
We really, in the long run, respected each other. I think he finally did respect me. He said so once, anyway. I am truly indebted to Jack Warner, who during all the years gave me the opportunity to have a successful career. He was my professional father. I admit I was often an obstreperous daughter, but he was often an obstreperous father.
She set a standard by which other actresses could measure themselves. And she and Paul Henry did things on screen that a whole world imitated, trying to capture the mystique of their sophistication.
Sometimes come here.
Now Voyager, Bette Davis and Max Steiner's music, the Four Handkerchief Movie.
Oh, Jerry, don't let's ask for the moon. We have the stars.
It was in another Bette Davis movie that a new Warner Brothers star would get his big break.
Now just behave yourself, you two, and nobody will get hurt. This is Duke Mantee, the world-famous killer, and he's hungry.
Humphrey Bogart became a movie star playing Duke Mantee, a role he created on Broadway. Now, Jack Warner didn't want him for the part, not at first anyway. He didn't like his lisp or his lip, or the fact that until then he was kind of a wimpy second lead, most remembered for prancing around the stage delivering the line, "Tarnish anyone?" But Leslie Howard, the star of the play, argued, no Bogart, no Howard. Well, it's a good thing Jack Warner backed down, because Bogey, evolving as he did, playing good guy roles and finally romantic leads, became the studio's foremost male star.
Look at the tag they hung on me. Mad Dog Earl. Gun newspaper rats.
He got his first real shot at stardom when George Raft turned down High Sierra. The film co-starred Ida Lupino, who herself would write a large part in the studio's history. She later became one of the first consistently successful women directors.
I don't care what happens to me. Let's stick together, honey. Let the money go. Forget about it.
High Sierra was co-written by young ex-prizefighter John Huston. After High Sierra, Warner Bros. Gave Huston the chance to direct his first film, The Maltese Falcon.
Make sure.
And as luck would have it, he would have been a star because, once again, a certain actor had turned down the part.
The original intention was to have George Raft play it, but he pulled away from it because he didn't want to trust his career to a young director, someone who'd never directed before. And Bogart, to my secret delight, was substituted. And that picture began, I think, a whole new career for Bogey.
you get a good break, you'll be out at the Tehachapi in 20 years, and you can come back to me then. I hope they don't hang you, Precious, for that sweet neck.
You're not.
Yes, Angel, I'm going to send you over. The chances are you'll get off with life. That means if you're a good girl, you'll be out in 20 years. I'll be waiting for you. If they hang you, I'll always remember you. Hello. Got him?
Got him.
Swell. Here's another one. She killed Miles. Oh, and I've got some exhibits. A bunch of guns, one fire rope, and a $1,000 bill I was supposed to be bribed with. And this black statuette here that all the fuss was about.
What is it?
The, stuff that dreams are made of.
Huh?
Bogart was now a major star, but with his next picture, he would become a screen immortal.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine. What's that you doing?
Oh, just a little something of my own.
Oh, stop it. You know what I want to hear.
No, I don't.
You played it for her, you play it for me.
Well, I don't think I can remember.
If she can stand it, I can. Play it.
Yes, boss.
You must remember that a kiss is just a kiss.
1942, produced by Hal Wallace, directed by Michael Curtiz, based on an unproduced play called Everybody Comes to Rick's. The Everybody were an all-star Warner Brothers cast. Irene Diamond was the executive who found the play.
While it was being made, that all the news was bad news. They didn't know how, for a long time, how it was going to end. They were going to try this, they were going to try that, they were going to try... And the cast was pretty demoralized because they kept getting, new scenes. And nobody, that's what is really remarkable. Nobody thought this was going to be a hit.
To us, it was one of the 50 pictures. It was another program picture. Sometimes I felt that you had a jigsaw puzzle, and we finally reached the point where nobody knew. We had one other story, and Barbra said, who do I go off with at the end, Bogart or Henry? And we said, as soon as we know, you'll be the first to know.
Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that person leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
But what about us?
We'll always have passion. We didn't have, we lost it until you came to Casablanca. We got it back last night. Here's looking at you, kid.
I always looked upon Casablanca a little mystically, that it had its own reason for being. It was a picture the audiences needed, the American, well, the world audiences actually. What it said was that there were values that were worth making sacrifices for. And it said it in a very entertaining way. But that was basically what it said. If Casablanca had ended, in my opinion, with Bogart going off with Bergman, the romantic ending, it wouldn't have happened. There wouldn't be any legend today.
Casablanca would become the studio's greatest triumph, but because of a controversy over who deserved the Oscar for Best Picture, Wallace left Warner Brothers. Wallace believed the Oscar was his, but Jack Warner allegedly blocked him from getting on the stage. It was J.L. who accepted the coveted trophy. Wallace became an independent producer aligned with another studio, but the director of Casablanca, Michael Curtiz continued on at Warner's. Curtiz, who directed 165 pictures, almost all of them at Warner's, was most known for his action movies like Robin Hood and The Charge of the Light Brigade. He was equally famous for his mangled English, like Bring On the Empty Horses. Hungarian-born, he was brought to Hollywood by Harry Warner, who had seen a biblical epic that he had made in Europe. In 1927, he directed Noah's Ark, Warner's answer to the silent Ben-Hur. Its great flood and the collapse of the temple remains one of the most astonishing scenes ever filmed. This European director of Casablanca ironically made some of Warner Brothers' most American films, like Mildred Pierce and Yankee Doodle Dandy. No director in Warner's history has equaled Michael Curtiz's output or his wide-ranging excellence. Yankee Doodle Dandy was a film that Warner Brothers did to bolster American morale during World War II. For the same reason, Warner's produced Sergeant York, starring Gary Cooper. The Warner Brothers patriotism found its way into the studio movies. Films that promoted democracy's triumph over fascism became the studio's passion. Remembering their own humble origins, so believed in America that they also made films celebrating the immigrant experiences, like that Norwegian football coach of Notre Dame, Knut Rockne.
Hey, you!
Knut Rockne, All-American, starred Pat O'Brien and featured a young contract player in a lesser role.
You ever play football?
Some in high school. Baseball's my dish.
Wouldn't you like to play football?
Not much.
I just saw you make that kick. You think you could do it again?
Yeah.
Go and get a uniform, report to the scrubs.
Why?
Because I think you'd make a football player.
I doubt it.
Try it anyway.
All right, if you insist.
Now, wait a minute. What's your name?
Kip. George Kip. What's yours?
When Ronald Reagan, a former sports announcer, heard about the part of Kip, he was told by studio executives he would scramble for the part.
All I wanted was to play George Gibb. And one of them said to me, well, you'd better talk to someone about that because they've tested 10 people already for the role of Gibb. Well, I reached out to the producer's office and told him. Well, he said, you know, Gibb was the greatest football player that ever lived. And, he said, I said, wait a minute, you're trying to tell me that I should weigh about 210 pounds and be 6.5 feet tall? Well, he said, he was a great football player, and I said, he weighed 5 pounds less than I weigh right now. I rushed home. I went down in the trunk and I came up with my college pictures in uniform of playing football in college. And I went back to the studio and I laid a picture of me down in the uniform. Well, anyone with the uniform on looked like a football player.
You wouldn't kid me.
Reagan only had 22 minutes of screen time in the film. One of his scenes became a screen classic.
All right, kid. Rock. Someday when the team's up against it, brakes are beating the boys. Ask them to go in there with all they've got. Win just one for the Kipper. I don't know where I'll be then, but I'll know about it. I'll be happy.
Ray made 41 films for Warner Brothers during what was called the Golden Age. At the time, Warner Brothers was like a family. Each year, the studio would celebrate at a dinner, the highlight of which was a blooper reel.
With the result that we just couldn't hang on long enough. I think we got 2 1/10s. I'm not sure, but probably.
Or would you rather hear how I finished a 3-act play with one hand whilst making love to a Maharaja with... Oh.
When it comes up for air, you find a dozen more going.
Wherever is a little...
She'll sacrifice herself to sacrifice somebody to... All right. Here we are, senor, from soup to nuts.
Holy mackerel, my play opens, I have my fingerprints taken, my hand married, the things has happened to...
Son of a...
What's wrong? Help me, dear God, help me. I'm caught on his mind.
Story of my life. Where do you want me to begin?
Well, I got a pretty good idea, but I can't think of the goddamn line. I didn't know we were going there.
How did Ewins know we wanted him to take us with Weans?
You?
Nuts.
I loved you from the first moment I saw you, and you, but you tried to...
Nuts!
You're looking blooming.
Oh, I'm fine. You been getting any lately?
Overtime, you mean?
Yeah.
You bastard, you.
Oh, son of a gun. You thought I was going to say son of a bitch, didn't you?
1944. A new kind of Warner's woman comes to the screen. She's advertised as the only kind of woman for his kind of man.
Anybody got a line?
The man is Bogart. She is Lauren Bacall. Bacall was an actress with a sexy voice who literally blazed her way across the screen. She was discovered by director Howard Hawks, but she was claimed by Bogart.
What'd you do that for?
Been wondering whether I'd like it.
What's the decision?
I don't know yet. It's even better when you help. Sure you won't change your mind about this?
Uh-huh.
This belongs to me and so do my lips. I don't see any difference.
Oh, I do.
Okay. You know you don't have to act with me, Steve. You don't have to say anything and you don't have to do anything. Not a thing. Oh, maybe just whistle. You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow.
Together both in life and on the screen, Bacall and Bogart became one of Hollywood's most exciting couples. They made 4 pictures together, including The Big Sleep and Key Largo. Key Largo was directed by John Huston, who would make another film with Bogey in 1948, The Treasure of Sierra Madre.
I'll leave him alone.
I told Bogart, you know, this might be a great picture. Bogey said, you're out of your mind. It's a good Western.
You're so dumb, you don't even see the riches you're treading on with your own feet.
The role of the old prospector was played by Walter Huston, John's father. Both father and son won Oscars.
Yeah, don't expect to find nuggets of molten gold, rich, but not that rich. And here ain't the place to dig. It comes from someplace further up. Up there. Up there where we got to go. Up there.
Once upon a time, you talked about a studio. You talked about its back lot, or you talked about what happened on its sound stages. Today it's different, mostly because of men like John Huston, who insisted on shooting The Treasure of Sierra Madre on location in Mexico. Directors in Hollywood want to make the world their stage, but the credo, a tree is a tree, shooting in Griffith Park, kept a lot of the early filmmakers here at home. Jack Warner, who said at the time that The Treasure of the Sierra Madre was the greatest motion picture the studio ever made, was one of the first to see the value of letting directors take their show on the road.
Veteran director John Ford took his show on the road to his favorite location, Monument Valley in Utah, to shoot The Searcher, one of the classics of the American screen.
The film starred John Wayne, who had appeared in his first Warner Brothers Western in 1932. Wayne, giving one of his best performances, joined Jeffrey Hunter in a search for Natalie Wood and understanding.
Let's go home, Debbie.
Shooting on location and using local people as part of the background cast now enriches most Hollywood movies. The Nun Story with Audrey Hepburn was shot in Africa by Fred Zinnemann, one of the most honored directors in Hollywood history. Zinnemann's special ability in storytelling was nurtured by his previous experience as a documentary filmmaker. Director John Borman of England took a Warner Brothers crew to Clayton, Georgia, and captured dueling banjos as played by a local boy, Billy Redden, in the film Deliverance. Billy was joined on screen by Hollywood stars like John Voight, Ned Beatty, and Burt Reynolds. In 1983, Academy Award nominee Roland Joffe took his cameras to Southeast Asia to film the personal story of an American journalist engulfed by war.
Action!
Today, directors like Joffe, myself, and Clint Eastwood can shoot our pictures where they should be shot, and we get to do only the pictures we want to do.
Did you see that? What was it, a rocket? I don't know, I saw a guy on a motorbike.
In front of or behind the camera, my work here at Warner Brothers has been done under remarkably different circumstances than the actors and directors in the early days of the studio. They were all under long-term contracts. The infamous 7-year contract that Davis and de Havilland and Cagney and Bogart all fought against. Well, because of their efforts, actors today can sign for one picture and one of their own choosing. Why, back then, directors didn't even choose their own material. Very often, getting a script on Friday and being asked to start on Monday. Elia Kazan was one of the first directors to break with those restrictions, working as an independent. For the 1951 film, he brought with him from Broadway a young actor the studio had originally turned down.
Marlon, what were the shows that you've done in New York? Name one or two for me.
I was in Canada with Catherine Cornell,
Yeah.
and I was in Eagle Rampant with Lula Bankhead.
Yeah.
And,
I remember Mama.
with Sophie Rosenstein.
Not quite.
And,
Old Truckline Cafe.
oh yeah, Truckline Cafe.
That's good enough. Will you turn your head for us?
Sure.
Now around the other way.
This screen test was made in 1947. Marlon Brando made his first picture for Warner Brothers and Kazan 4 years later, recreating his stage portrayal of Stanley Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire. Vivian Leigh played Dubois.
What's that for?
Oh, I could twist a broken end in your face.
But you would do that.
I would. I will if you...
Oh. Want to have a little rough house, huh? All right, let's have a little rough house.
Take one, sound six. Right in the machine now.
Elia Kazan, who directed Streetcar, also picked another actor to play James Dean's brother in East of Eden.
Disappointed whether I go for the girls, though, you know.
Paul, you think the girls go for Jim?
Oh,
Look
great.
Size them up.
Kiss me.
Caviar.
All right, look straight over there at the sound man. That's it.
He's a surly bastard.
Exchange, he is not.
What?
Exchange places. He's just doing his work. Turn places. You swap places.
Swap.
Turn my back to this mother.
Nose to nose. Look right at each other. Profile.
Yeah?
Okay, now right the camera. All right, cut it.
Paul Newman didn't get to play Dean's brother. The role went to Dick Davalos. Jo Van Fleet would win an Academy Award for her performance as the boy's prostitute mother.
Okay.
Mother, this is your other son, Aaron. Aaron? Say hello to your mother.
Say hello to your mother, Aaron.
James Dean made only 3 films in his short and fateful career, all for Warner Brothers, the last of which was Giant. George Stevens, a former cameraman, directed the legendary actor in the Edna Ferber classic. His co-stars were Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor.
I'm a Richie.
Jack, we're real glad you struck him. Now you go on along home.
Oh, my, you sure do look pretty, Miss Leslie. Just pretty nigh good enough to eat.
Wait a minute. Boy.
The film that seemed to burn its way into the moviegoer psyche, however, was The Rebel Without a Cause. Its rebellious spirits captured the essence of the teenage generation. James Dean died in a tragic automobile accident at the age of 24. But after only 3 films, he became a mythical figure and one of the movie's most enduring icons. One of Dean's co-stars in Rebel was Natalie Wood. She was what you would call a brat. The ill-fated actress, who also died young in a boating accident, grew up in the Warner lot.
She made 12 films there, getting her first big chance to cross over from child actor to grown-up.
When I did Rebel, which Rebel Without a Cause, when I was a teenager, it was kind of hard to convince the producers that I was the right age. They still saw me in pigtails and like a little child, somebody's daughter. So I had to make a lot of screen tests for that. But that was a lucky picture because that part had such dimension to it, you know, more than the normal ingenue role for a 15-year-old girl. So I think that helped me get into more mature roles.
Natalie Wood played a role in bringing another brother star to Warner Brothers. The year was 1965. The picture Inside Daisy Clover, the actor Robert Redford. Redford remembers how it all happened.
I was in the theater and she had seen a play that I was in and was interested in me in this part. I was certainly not known. I was not anybody that they could sell tickets with. So she had a lot to do with it.
Redford's career at Warner Brothers has spanned 2 decades. He later returned to the studio to act in and to produce the award-winning All the President's Men.
Where are you? Stuck. Forget the myths that the media's created about the White House. The truth is, these are not very bright guys, and things got out of hand.
I spent 3 years on All the President's Men. That was one of the most difficult projects I ever produced and worked on. But one I was completely committed to. And there was a big feeling about no one wanting to see it, no one wants to react to Watergate.
We got it! Dustin Hoffman played Carl Bernstein. Redford played Bob Woodward.
I said if I get to 10 and you don't hang up, it's solid. Did he confirm it? Absolutely. You gotta tell Brad.
The film earned 8 Academy Award nominations and won 4, including Best Screenplay for William Goldman.
Bernstein got another source. The guy just is confirmed.
There's any doubt we can run it tomorrow?
You don't have to. The story's solid. We're sure of it.
Okay, we go with it.
You're happy, Bud.
I guess so. I don't ask myself that question very often, though.
Another young actor got his start in a Natalie Wood movie. The movie was Splendor in the Grass. The actor Warren Beatty.
Gee, things work out awful funny sometimes, don't they, Davy?
Yes, they do.
Beatty later turned producer and star with Bonnie and Clyde.
Hey, boy, what you doing with my mama's car?
Beatty played Clyde. Faye Dunaway was Bonnie. He was nominated for an Oscar.
Wait there. Well, I'm Miss Bonnie Parker, and this here's Mr. Clyde Barrow. We rob banks.
Hey.
At about the same time Warren Beatty was recalling Warner Brothers' rich history of gangster movies, Paul Newman, who didn't get the part in East Eden, was added to the studio's lore of prison pictures. He gave one of his most memorable performances as a star of Cool Hand Luke. The film, written by Don Pierce and Frank Pearson, also became famous because of a line spoken by Strother Martin.
Never! Never! What we've got here is failure to communicate. Some men you just can't reach.
Also making movie history at the time was Elizabeth Taylor.
What a dump! Huh? What's that from?
I haven't the faintest idea.
Dumb girl. It's from some damn Betty Davis picture of some goddamn Warner Brothers epic.
Martha,
Taylor's performance opposite real-life husband Richard Burton won her a second Oscar.
I looked at you tonight and you weren't there. Snapped. And I'm gonna howl it out. And I'm not gonna give a damn what I do, and I'm gonna make the biggest goddamn explosion you've ever heard.
you try and I'll beat you at your own game.
Is that a threat, George, huh?
That's a threat, Martha.
You're gonna get it, baby.
Be careful, Martha. I'll rip you to pieces.
You're not man enough. You haven't the guts.
Total.
Total.
With the passing of long-term contracts, Warner's was now freer to recruit stars from other studios, like Judy Garland, who found a home at Warner's for her independent classic, A Star Is Born.
The night is bitter, the stars have lost their glitter, the winds grow colder, suddenly you're older, and all because of the man that got away.
In his last days at the studio, Jack Warner turned to big musicals to fight off television.
Make mine exasperate.
He turned first to Doris Day, a popular band singer, who quickly became the studio's biggest income producer.
Hey there, you with the stars in your eyes, love never made a fool of you. You used to be too wise.
Jack Warner's days at the studio were nearing an end, and he went out making music. His last picture was canceled after he sold the studio to 7 Arts. He said it wasn't fun anymore. He was 75 years old and he'd run the studio for 55 years.
He was crushed. He didn't know what to do with himself. Running the studio was his life. And every day was New Year's Eve. You know, every day was a holiday when he was running the studio because things were happening constantly. What with signing new directors, new books, new plays. He was a man of tremendous energy and tremendous adventure.
Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot for one brief shining moment that was known as Camelot.
The day Jack Warner left the lot, a film student from USC began a 6-month internship at the studio.
Warner's presence was still there. He had left, but his presence was very much there. And so everybody was always talking about him and about the good old days and all that sort of thing. So it was great. It was an interesting time because it was, I don't know if that'll ever happen again, where you can sort of be in this giant old movie studio and not have anything going on and have the streets all empty and the offices all empty. And there were a few people there, but not very many. It was really an amazing time. It was very romantic in a kind of funny way.
Lucas interned on the only picture shooting on the lot at that time, another big musical, Finian's Rainbow. The director was 27-year-old Francis Ford Coppola.
We were all very young. Francis and I were the only ones on the set with beards. And Marty Scorsese was there. He was working as an editor. So, you know, once we started talking, we were both film students, so we talked film student talk.
With Jack gone and the other brothers dead, the studio faltered. And in 1969, 7 Arts sold out to Kinney and Stephen J. Ross. Ross started his first company, a limousine service, by borrowing his father-in-law's funeral parlor animals. Thus he began the same way as the Warner Brothers. They had borrowed the chairs from the funeral parlor.
Ross appointed a former top-flight agent, Ted Ashley, as head of the studio. Joining Ashley's leadership were two experienced film executives, Frank Wells and John Calley.
The new production team quickly turned out a couple of hits, the first of which was Woodstock.
By the time we got to Woodstock, we were heavenly strong.
Woodstock was the film of its generation, chronicling the events of a watershed movement in American history. A searching youth culture made its statement, and the Oscar-winning film echoed it. The top rock and folk performers of the era lent their voices to the celebration.
Owned by a country Joe, Crosby, Still, Nash, Richie, Jimi Hendrix, and Sebastian. I'm not lying. The years on The Who.
Following Woodstock, the studio turned out its top money earner to that time. The film had also won 10 Academy Award nominations. Beginning, the new Warner Brothers team aligned itself with the best, like writer-producer Stanley Kubrick. In 1971, the fiercely independent Kubrick made A Clockwork Orange for Warner's. The complete filmmaker Kubrick would continue this relationship over 20 years. His movies, among the most distinguished released by the studio, have earned 12 Academy Award nominations.
Here's Johnny!
Johnny was played by Jack Nicholson. In his preparation to redo a scene with Shelley Duvall for The Shining, one can see the actor slowly yielding to the character's madness.
Well, where's the Shelley? All right, you just say turn over when you're ready, Stanley.
After many years of performing in relatively obscure movies, Jack Nicholson, a former MGM office boy, joined with Warner Brothers to make several films. In The Witches of Eastwick, he encountered the verbal abuse of Cher.
I am positive that you are the most unattractive man I have ever met in my entire life. You know, in the short time we've been together, you have demonstrated every loathsome characteristic of the male personality and even discovered a few new ones. You are physically repulsive, intellectually retarded, you're morally reprehensible, vulgar, insensitive, selfish, stupid. You have no taste, a lousy sense of humor, and you smell. You know, you're not even interesting enough to make me sick.
Would you like to be on the top or the bottom?
Goodbye, Darryl, and thank you for a lovely lunch.
Well, if that's the way you feel about it, that's the way you feel about it. Is that the way you feel about it?
Who are you?
Just your average, horny little devil.
Nicholson's Joker faced off against Michael Keaton's Caped Crusader in Batman, which became the highest-grossing film in the studio's history.
Hold on.
Get those wonderful toys.
With Batman and other films, Bob Daly headed the studio since 1980, and Chief Operating Officer Terry Semmel have achieved successes consistent with J.L. and his brothers' visions. The visions are the same, but the horizons are far greater.
When the Warner Brothers exhibited their first film in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, it made sense, but They could not have known just how big the audience for movies would become. It's hard to believe. Zulu tribesmen, Lapland reindeer herders, Bedouin camel traders, Arctic Circle Eskimos, Fiji Islanders, Balinese batik weavers, Manchurian cabbage growers, all have seen a Warner Brothers movie. Maybe even National Lampoon's Vacation movie.
A thing of glory for 1 million future generations to see.
And we were here. There are young kids in the Amazon and in the Sahara who walk and talk and move like Clint or Mel or other contemporary Warner Brothers stars. Warner Brothers men have always been tough, and their women tougher.
Of all the ginger joints, all the towns, all the world, he walks in mine. Play a tram.
I don't,
You must remember this.
Oh.
A kiss is still a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh.
Barbra Streisand, who began as a switchboard operator on a theater lecturette, won Greenwich Village nightclub contests in the early 60s and quickly established herself as one of America's leading actresses, as well as producer and director.
Oh, I'm sorry. Love means never having to say you're sorry.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
In 1976, she made Star is Born. She would also co-write its Academy Award-winning song, Evergreen.
Fresh as the morning air, and I will make each night a first. Every day I begin. Spirits rise, and dances are rehearsed.
Warner Brothers women are tough, but they're also sexy and independent. The studio introduced one such sexy and independent star in her screen debut.
Had an extraordinary experience, and you'll be sharing it with us soon. We've discovered a new star. I've been working with new personalities for many years, but I doubt if I've ever found anyone with the youth, the beauty, and the talent of Jane Fonda.
Fonda made her debut in Tall Story in 1960. She won an Oscar in 1971 for her performance as a call girl in Trouble in Clute.
What about this evening, the old man?
You saw that? God damn you! He's 70 years old. His wife is dead. He's been cutting garments since he was 14, and he never lays a hand on me. What harm is there in that? And what's your bag, Clute? What do you like? You a talker? A button freak? You like to have your chest walked around with high heel shoes? Maybe you like to have to watch you tinkle? What about you?
Me? I need tending. I need someone to take care of me. Someone to rub my tired muscles, smooth out my sheets.
Get married.
I just need it for tonight.
Oh. Oh, nice move, Matty.
Natty? I like it. It's right over your heart.
At least it's cool. I was burning up.
Yeah, she's not talking about the heat.
Why don't you get me a paper towel or something? And some cold water.
Right away. I'll even put it up for you.
You don't like it?
Kathleen Turner began her television soap. Goldie Hawn in a TV comedy as the ditzy blonde and laughing. The former can-can dancer at the 1964 World's Fair, Goldie has made 5 movies with the studio, including Private Benjamin.
I think they sent me to the wrong place.
Uh-huh.
See, I did join the army, but I joined a different army. I joined the one with the condos and the private rooms. What?
Get your ass up and come in the street! Down, up, down, up, down, up!
What is this, Hell Week?
Hobson,
Yeah?
do you know what I'm going to do?
No, I don't.
I'm going to take a bath.
Let the media.
Warner Brothers' 1980 comedies included class acts, like putting together a piano player and a Shakespearean actor.
Do you want to run my bath for me?
That's what I live for.
Dudley Moore plays a sophisticated, often inebriated Arthur. Sir John Gielgud, his butler.
Perhaps you'd like me to come in there and wash your dick for you. Little shit.
Another kind of comedy, one mixed with horror, was Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, starring Michael Keaton.
Babs. Boy, do you know how to pick a woman. Really solid. Do I have a shot at her? Excuse me, sure. Am I overstepped my bounds? Just tell me. Come on. Don't you hate it when that happens? Let's go, Barbra. Wait.
The 1980s began for Warner Brothers not with a comedy star, but with a comic book hero. The studio companies brought Superman to the screen. Christopher Reeve doubled as Clark Kent and the Man of Steel.
What the hell's that?
Margot Kidder played Lois Lane.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me. Who's got you?
Superman's director, Dick Donner, later turned his attention to another kind of superhero for the studio. A suicidal cop whose recklessness transforms him into a lethal weapon.
Now, you can jump if you want to, but you'll be taking me with you, and that makes you a murderer. Okay? Come on, let's go back. Bastard! Yeah, you'll be killing the cop. Kill the psycho! No! Psycho, cop, you coming in? Come on, going. I'm jumping! Do you really want to jump? Do you want to? Well, then that's fine with me. Come on. Let's do it, asshole. Let's do it. What do you mean? Want to do it? What do you mean?
Mel Gibson, the American-born actor who first found success in Australia, played the lethal weapon. His co-star was Danny Glover. He and director Dick Donner have worked together on all the Lethal Weapon movies. Donner puts on the screen the traditional Warner Brothers values. His films resonate with Harry's dictum to make them important, Jack's to make them entertaining, and Abe's to make them money. Donner senses what it means to be a Warner Brothers director.
Great, print, both of them, prints. Next setup. Sure, there's a little spine tingling chill that goes down your back when you think I am now director at Warner Brothers, and I mean, you know, they're not cough drops, and it's a very inspiring thought that you are part of a great period of American history, is the motion picture industry.
As directors became more important to the process of making movies, Warner Brothers kept its eyes open for the better young people like Batman's director, Tim Burton, and before him, Martin Scorsese. Scorsese began his career on the lot as a film editor in 1969. He directed his first important picture for the studio in 1973. The film was Mean Streets, and it became a signature film for the brash, streetwise New York director. It starred Bob De Niro, an actor critics described as having the kind of face you can't remember. Scorsese and motion picture audiences all over the world did remember that face. De Niro became one of the world's biggest biggest stars and a Scorsese favorite.
He's gone. He's gone. And that's it. I can believe it. I can't find it. Thank you.
17 years after Mean Streets, De Niro, who has been nominated for 5 Academy Awards, winning 2, starred in Scorsese's Goodfellas. Actors and directors choose to be affiliated with the studio for special projects. No relationship between director and studio for special projects is quite like that which exists between Warner Brothers and Steven Spielberg. Spielberg, as both producer and director, has been associated with Warner Brothers on a dozen films.
Until you do right by me, everything you think about is gonna... Don't do it, Miss C. Don't trade places with what I've been through. Come on, Miss C. Let's go. He ain't worth it. He ain't worth it.
Who you think you is? You can't trust nobody. Look at you. You're black, you're poor, you're ugly, you're a woman, you're nothing at all.
Till you do right by me, everything you even think about gonna fail.
It's been a pleasure meeting all of you. Bye.
Once upon a time, you could say a name like Betty Davis or Humphrey Bogart, and that name would conjure up Warner Brothers. Today, Clint Eastwood's name has that same effect. He has been associated with the studio since his television days as a young actor. As a director and star, Clint Eastwood has had a profound effect on the destiny of the studio.
Will you come here for a second?
His directorial efforts have included action pictures and sensitive portraits of artists like Charlie Parker. A former logger, steel furnace stoker, and gas station attendant, Eastwood has made over 20 movies for Warner Brothers, many of them among the studio's top grossers.
You'll be 10 bears?
I am 10 bears.
I ain't promising you nothing extra. I'm just giving you life and you're giving me life. And I'm saying that men can live together without butchering one another.
It shall be life.
As an actor, Eastwood made an indelible mark in 5 Dirty Harry movies.
You're a walking friggin' combat zone. People have a nasty habit of getting dead around you.
You're a dinosaur, Callahan. Your ideas don't fit today.
Everywhere you go, something gets smashed or somebody gets killed.
Go ahead. Make my day.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But being this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Hey.
I got to know.
There are those of us who are privileged to appear in or to conceive the images that take shape on the big screen in movie theaters throughout the world. In light and in shadows, we perhaps help give shape to the dreams of others. Warner Brothers, beginning with 4 men, helped shape the dreams of America. There was Sam Warner, who believed you could dare the impossible, and Abe, who knew the meaning of keeping your feet on the ground, and Harry, who very early on sensed the power of the screen to help change the world, and Jack, J.L., whose passion it was to make sure movies gave us a good time. They made us laugh, sing, dance, cry. They all started it. And now the men and women who share their commitment to making good movies continue it. They continue it by being in touch not only with today, but with history. On June 2nd, 1990, Warner Brothers got in touch with that history by hosting one of Hollywood's most extraordinary parties. Over 1,000 members of the Warner family, past and present, attended. The purpose of the party was to rename the studio lot, which had been changed to the Burbank Studios. It also celebrated a tradition of excellence. Among the Warner Brothers stars returning home was President Ronald Reagan, welcomed by producer David L. Wolper. It was a night to remember. The backbone of the studio is its people, its family of executives, producers, directors, writers, technicians. They're all part of the Warner Brothers tradition. But finally, what remains is the screen, the images of the great stars.
Be induced to arrange a passage.
My letter of transit? I could use a trip. But it doesn't make any difference about our bet. You still owe me 10,000 francs.
And that 10,000 francs should pay our expenses.
Our expenses?
Mm-hmm.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.